there was the request from the museum side that we do a show that consists of existing work, kind of almost as a little bit like a survey show, but since I was not so interested in doing something which is too retrospect or too scientific in the ways it looks at the work that already exists, I was trying to find a way how I could make this idea of a show that exists out of existing works, how can I make that productive? And the second component was a little bit, I've been here a couple of times, also in this space. I've seen the Michel Maillero's show and I've seen other shows, and the last show I saw was the one before this one, was the Warhol show, and there was always a certain kind of architecture involved in here, and that made me think that since this is a really special kind of space because it's so long and narrow, I thought maybe it would be interesting to take all the architecture out and really use it as this kind of really long space. And so the idea developed that I'm gonna put one line of work, not in chronological order, more kind of in a formally arranged order, just one line in the middle of the space all along the 70 meters that the space has. And what I said before, the idea of making it productive again is something that exists in my work anyways a lot. I'm very busy with the idea of what is a model and what is how does a work start with a drawing and end up in a kind of complicated sculpture, and all these processes I'm interested in anyway. So I thought, why shouldn't we do something where the work I'm showing, the existing work I'm showing, I'm going to use to produce a new work. And then I had this idea that since it's the one line in the middle of the space, to take out the lighting system and install it, instead of on the ceiling, install it on the wall. And that kind of produces shadows on the wall, and with these shadows combined with some extra painting work I do on the wall, create a kind of 70-meter long wall painting, which only exists because the old work that's here is used as material. I think that was kind of the main parameters how this all came together. How it developed specifically was that I was not looking for work like only the most important work in my body, in my whole body of work, but I was more going to think about what could be formally interesting as a shadow. And then I picked a couple of works that I thought would be interesting, and then I thought it's also maybe too much of going one line, so I also picked some work which are the opposite, which are not so interesting as a shadow. And then I made a model in my studio, and then I tried to combine them and push them around, and some works taking out. I mean, the real result you could only see when you have the work installed and use the actual lamp you're using, because it's almost impossible to really simulate that entirely in a computer or in a model. So when the works were up and we put the lights, then the work of the painting really started, because I mean I had kind of vague ideas what I want to include and what I would maybe be able to do with the painting, developing it out of the shadows, but I really had to then sit down and look at it and then start working on it. It's just maybe like a paint, really just like a normal painting, that you use a bit of yellow and then you look at it again and then you use a bit of green and so on. And then together with my assistants we made a couple of tests at home, what kind of paint or different materials would work, and then we tested here again, bought a couple of things and then started. And probably take another 1.5 days, and then I'm hopefully satisfied with the result. The representation of the work itself has different aspects. Once there's a sculpture and it represents itself, it also represents in a way where it's coming from, and it has his history and his story and his concept. But then, if you look at it from a different perspective, you could also say, I don't even have to look at the work, because the work that is supposed to be here is the wall painting, and the sculpture is only here to produce that. And I'm kind of interested in these kind of different perspectives and processes, how you can use work. I don't feel I have any limits of material-wise that I could use for my work. And I think that's, whether it's strategical things, whether it's physical material, whether it's economical processes, whether it's, I think, as long as it's becoming an interesting result in what I'm trying to do, as long as that is made sure, I could use anything, and I'm trying to pick things that enable me more than others to work about what I want to work about. And since I do not have the feeling that I would be very successful in using more classical materials in my work, I still feel myself as a very classical, and I feel myself as a sculptor, But what a sculpture is and what it means today, that's something I'm working about. But I think that's in a ways just what artists always have done. It just changes since everything around changes, also the art changes, that has to kind of be related in some sort of way to what's going on around.